Palau is made up of 200 islands. It is located in the western Pacific Ocean, the western portion of the Caroline Islands, southeast of the Philippines. The major center is Cor. Palau was one of the first island groups in Micronesia to be settled. It is said that the islanders arrived from Southeast Asia 4,000 years ago. Imperialism in Palau by Irene Yoshida. Although some will argue that Spain, Germany, Japan, and the US helped Palau to progress, in reality they destroyed Palau's rights, religion, and indigenous way of life. In 1783, Captain Henry Wilson was shipwrecked on an island between Cora and Palau on Oolong Reef. Wilson and the others became friendly with the Palauans, especially the High Chief of Cora, Albathuel. Albathuel helped them make a new ship, the Oolong, which took 3 months. At that time, he suggested that Prince Lebu, his second son, went to England with them to see the world. On July 1784, they arrived in England. He was surprised by what he saw, determined to bring it back to his people. On December 27, 1784, Prince Lebu died 5 months after their arrival because of smallpox. When Prince Lebu died, Albathuel made a poem dedicated to his son. He was a great leader of Palau. Afterwards, many foreign explorers came. Palauans died from introduced diseases brought from passing ships. Later in 1872, 200 people died. They included smallpox, influenza, and leropsy. It all started when the American whale ship Delta came to anchor off Pompeii and spread the smallpox. Their indigenous way of life is very traditional. First, a married couple will go to the tunga leg of the man, which in most cases are located in his own lineage land. The tunga leg were 3 or 4 generations deep. The chief and authority in the tunga leg was the senior male in the lineage group, even if the married couple and the children lived in separate dwelling. It was located near the tunga leg and it depended on. Surprisingly, the mother's brother has a huge part. He has more responsibility towards his sister's children than his own. He was expected to help and provide assistance and guidance. One of the most important part in the Palauan family is that they spent a lot of time together. For example, at meals, when the whole family ate from 2 pots, one for starches and the other for fish, there was only one voice. Britain becomes Palau's main trading partner and European contacts grow, resulting in a stronger relationship. They grew tapioca, sweet potatoes, and taro. Fish were their main export, which may go up to 780,000 pounds per year. From 1885 to 1895, Spain ruled Palau. Palau was influenced by Spain, most importantly Catholicism. Surprisingly, the native Palauans accepted it. Apparently, their missionary work was a struggle to replace the traditional customs with new and better ones. The first to bring the church to Micronesia was Fr. Diego Luis de San Vitores along with others, but eventually they were killed. In 1886, the Spanish Capuchins came to establish church. They started with Yap and Pompeii and spread it to Palau and Chunk. When Germany took over, they replaced the Spanish Capuchins with the German Capuchins, priests, and brothers. The children in Palau attended Catholic school. The Capuchins were shunned and they were tried to stop the children who were gathering out of curiosity, but the intentions of the missionaries was to bring a new teaching and a new way of life diametrically opposed to their own. On April 28, 1891, Santa Cruz came, bringing 2 brothers and 2 priests for the first permanent mission, where they were greeted and were brought to the meeting house near the water. It was infested with vermin and crumbling. The Capuchins used part of it as a chapel and the other for their stay. Soon it spread and a Catholic school was opened for the first time. More and more schools were opened. More than half of the population is Roman Catholic and a little over a fourth is Protestant. In 1885, Pope Leo asserted Spain's rights of the Caroline Islands. Then, in 1899, Spain sold Palau to Germany in the German-Spanish treaty for 25 million pesetas, which is nearly 1 million pounds of sterling, after being defeated in the Spanish-American War. They also lost the Philippine Islands. Germany profits from the resources using native labor. They were forced to mine phosphates, coconut plantations, etc. Phosphates were the most greatest source of income. In 1914, after Germany's defeat in World War I, Japan seized Palau and was passed to them formally in the 1919 Treaty of Versailles. Port, which was the main town for Japan's regional possessions, the Japanese civilian population was about 26,000 people. In 1922, Japan made Port the administrative center for Japanese possessions in the South Pacific. From 1940 to 1945, during World War II, the Japanese naval facilities and military fortifications in Palau were bombed by U.S. warplanes on the morning of September 15. The troops arrived on the shore. Palau was a volcanic island, a garrison held by more than 10,000 Japanese soldiers. When Admiral William Hasley ordered that the landing in Palau should be cancelled, since the enemy resistance was less than they expected, they chose to attack Palau anyway. At first, there was a fight between US and Japan, which consisted of 1,700 American soldiers and 11,000 Japanese soldiers. About 8,000 troops were wounded for the US. They aimed at the enemy invaders for days. Their intention was to negotiate peace with the Allies. The US attacked because they wanted possession of the airfields. The largest group of Japanese were located on Bafmol with 27,000, Peleliu with 11,000, and Angar with 2,000. They were to strike the last two.
Concluding 3 days of softening up enemy strong points by strafing and bombing, Palau was to be invaded and captured so that U.S. forces would gain possession of the vitally important airfield of the island, a key to the control of the Western Pacific area. But there were many installations which the Navy's guns did not even touch.
During this war, the Palauans lost their rights of their own land and were sent to evacuate from the island, yet few stayed behind and survived. After World War II ended in 1945, which the Japanese surrendered and General Sadai Inouye, the commander of Japanese forces in Palau, signed the formal surrender papers on September 2, 1945, the settlers were forced to go back to Japan. They returned the weapons and the Palauans were released to their own island. Soon the U.S. took control of Palau. In 1947, Palau becomes a United Nations Trust territory under the U.S. administration, one of 6 districts, to improve their educational system and infrastructure. In 1981, finally on October 1, 1994, Palau got their independence from the signing of Compact of Free Association. As for today, Palau still remembers its past. The battle scars will never be effaced from their land, and they continue to celebrate their traditions. The Palauans lost their rights to stay in their land, and their religion and lifestyle were changed.